Roundtable, the weekly podcast for indie authors by indie authors. We interview the biggest names in self-publishing to help you sell more books.
Getting to the good part.
Now, your hosts.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 51 of the Self-Publishing Roundtable, the podcast by indie authors for indie authors. I am your host, Wade Finnegan, and my co-hosts for this evening are Carl Sinclair, John Ward, hello, and Kevin Michael.
Hey.
Kevin, you were out sick last week, and then like the week before we had technical difficulties, and so I never really got to say a proper welcome. So I just want to tell you how much a pleasure it is to have you on the show, and I really appreciate you having such low professional standards. So thanks.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you haven't kicked me off yet.
Trish couldn't join us this evening. She's got some personal matters going on, but our special guest tonight is science fiction author Nicholas Smith. Nicholas has two very popular science fiction books out that he originally self-published, but his most successful one, Orbs, was picked up by Simon Schuster. Congratulations on that, Nick. He also has another one called the Biomaths Revolution, which is doing quite well. So we decided to bring Nick on to talk about the switch from indie publishing to traditional publishing, what he's learned from that, also looking a little bit at the marketing side of both aisles. Thanks, Nick, for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. Happy to be here.
Could you give our listeners just a little quick snippet bio about your writing path and how you kind of got here today?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's always been a hobby, and last year it turned into something more than that. I started off with the Biomaths Revolution, which was my debut novel. I didn't do a whole lot of marketing there, but it did okay. And then I wrote Orbs. It took me about 6 months. I self-published it and put quite a bit of marketing behind it, and I got lucky. I got an agent. He was able to sell the book, and I was able to make the jump pretty quickly to full-time writing, and now I'm working on Orbs 2, Orbs 3, and a couple other projects. So it's been a busy couple years. My education is actually in political science. I did take some creative writing classes at the University of Iowa's Writers' Workshop, but besides that, I mean, this has just been a hobby that's blossomed into a career, hopefully.
Awesome. That's great. Carl, you want to start us out with some questions tonight?
Yeah, why don't you just let us know about how the first book got up and how you started with indie publishing, sort of your background and what got you interested in it, and then later on we'll segue across to the switch over to traditional. So maybe just give us a bit of a background of how the first book came about and what you did to get that up there.
With the Biomaths Revolution or with Orbs?
Which was the first? I can't remember.
The first one was the Biomaths Revolution, and like I said, I really didn't do a whole lot of marketing behind that one. I wrote that book over like 6 or 7 years and just self-published it because, family and friends were like, give it a shot. So I did. Didn't do real well until Orbs came out, and then Biomaths Revolution started selling because Orbs was doing so well. But I think what you guys are probably interested in is what I did for Orbs and what kind of marketing I did for that one.
Yeah, that was the one that really got my attention when I saw it flying around on the charts.
Yeah. So do you want me to kind of go into detail on what I did? I've been real open with other authors and just anyone that asks like what my marketing strategy was. I think it's important to note that in 2012, when I was getting ready to publish the Biomaths Revolution, after that book didn't do so well, I really took a lot of time to kind of research what was working for indie authors, and then I kind of modified what I saw to form my own plan. So I can go into details. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be a great start, and then if we have any further questions about it, we can build it out from there. That's a good idea.
So, obviously I kind of researched what was working for indie authors in my genre, so like the post-apocalyptic genre, science fiction, and obviously Amazon really caters to series right now. A lot of the books that you see are doing well often are in a series. There's not a whole lot of standalone indie books out there that, obviously you have Cyberstorm. I think you guys just interviewed Michael Mather last week?
Yeah.
Matthew Mather?
Yeah,
right.
Matthew.
So there are examples like that where those indie books just explode. But for the most part, what I saw was series doing well, and on average, these authors were releasing a book every 3 to 4 months, and they just kept pumping them out. And so what I did was I wrote Orbs 1, and I wrote Solar Storms, which is a prequel, and then I had Orbs 2 pretty much finished by the time Orbs 1 was out for a couple months, and I was waiting. I was ready to self-publish Orbs 2, but I was waiting to see if a publisher was going to buy it. We had a couple of different ones interested, and ended up selling it in January. So, but let me start off with what I did for Orbs. So I wrote Solar Storms as a prequel, and I enrolled that into KDP Select, and it's just a short story. I gave it away for free 5 days in advance of publishing Orbs, and I did some bit.ly links which allow you to track sales, and if you guys are familiar with that service, and so I noticed a lot of people that were downloading Solar Storms then went on to buy Orbs, and kind of like what Darren did, I released from first activation. I know you guys have interviewed him too. I set my price at 99 cents, and I left it there until I had sold 10,000 copies. And what that did was Orbs was showing up in virtually every also bought on Amazon for the genre. And that's huge because that sustains sales. Also, it was showing up in the #1 categories for like 3 or 4 different, I guess you can call them like categories, subcategories. But that's another thing that I did was I really researched what categories. You get 2 on Amazon, but then you can also do subcategories too. So I picked some that are less competitive, and Orbs ended up becoming #1 in like 5 different categories for a while. So that it was just all that exposure. But there was more to it than that. I'm going to kind of pull up my marketing plan because I really did utilize a lot of those promo sites that Darren used, the 99-cent sites, and that really helped. I think in combination with the free days that Solar Storms had. I mean, we had a couple thousand downloads of Solar Storms, and a couple hundred people then went on to buy Orbs, and so that was kind of the marketing that I did. I bought an ad through. Hold on, guys. My dog is gonna bark here. Let me just get her out of the way. Sorry.
Okay, quick, Carl. Say something funny.
While he's doing that, what should we tell people to do? Why don't they start leaving questions?
You can check out leave the questions in the blog comments.
Yeah, go. And we've got a couple more of the indie author interviews that Kevin's been doing over on the blog, so check those out. Not right now, because Nick's back, but later.
Guys, my little ankle biter dog, I don't know if she's hungry or what, but she doesn't want to leave me alone all of a sudden. All right, so where was I? I was talking about the free days, and then the
promo sites.
Yeah, those ebook sites. Really, I think the idea is to get as many also bots as possible. So when you do raise the price of the book, then those sustain sales, because there's going to be a drop, obviously, when you raise from 99 cents to $2.99. Looks like we have some questions. You guys want me to just keep going, or?
Well, I have a question for you. You said you put the prequel for free for 5 days, and you got a couple thousand downloads, and you put it up 5 days before Orbs came out. Mm-hmm. How many different free sites did you submit to, and did you get picked up? And then also with Orbs, did you give it a bunch of advanced review copies so you'd have enough reviews to do paid promos? Yeah,
that was the next thing I was going to say. So I think what I did was I had a bunch of beta readers that read Solar Storms and Orbs, and then I also posted in Goodreads in several groups asking, a couple weeks in advance of publishing both of these books, I asked who wanted a free copy. And anyone that said they wanted it, I sent them an advance copy, and many of those people did post reviews. So I think Solar Storms had like 30 reviews in the first 2 weeks. And then I want to say Orbs had like between 50 and 75 reviews within the first month, which far exceeded my expectations. I was hoping for 50 reviews at the end of the first month. Because one thing that I've noticed about Amazon is it's not just sales that prompt Amazon to promote your book, it's reviews. And I don't know how. I mean, no one really understands the algorithms, but I think that the more reviews a book gets, negative or positive, doesn't really matter. They still they put the book in their newsletters, and that's one thing that they did for Orbs that I think really helped it, and it ended up being in the Kindle Select 25, which is where my agent actually saw it. I didn't even know it was in the Select 25 until he told me. But so there was just, I got lucky. I mean, there was a lot of things that went well. But to answer your question, I mean, yes, I sent out probably 100 advanced review copies. And like I said, after the Biomaths Revolution published, I spent that year putting together like a database of different bloggers and then readers that showed interest in the Biomaths Revolution. Then I asked them if they'd like to read Orbs. So, I mean, I put a lot of legwork into this before I hit the publish button for both books, knowing that reviews would help. And another thing I kind of wanted to touch on was the fact that it's great to have reviews, but you really want to try to get your book into the hands of readers that want to read it, and that's why I use Goodreads. There's all these groups I joined, post-apocalyptic book groups, that those readers enjoy that type of book.
Now, one thing I was going to ask you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go for it. No, go for it, Kevin.
So you said you joined post-apocalyptic groups. Did you do any sci-fi groups too, or just kind of a mixture?
Yeah, just a mixture of them. A lot of them were the ebooks. There's some that are specifically for ebooks. There's a sci-fi one, for example, and I joined that one. Apocalypse Whenever, they have like 7,000 members. And then I was actually a kind of co-hosting a very small dystopian group, and there were some people in there that showed interest too. But pretty much anyone that said, "Hey, I'll read your book," I sent them a free copy, knowing that my idea all along was, in order to be successful, I had to basically give the book away, and that's a lot of indie authors do that, and that's how you build an audience. I mean, I've always been from the mindset that 99-cent promotion, yeah, it kind of sucks, but in the long run, if it works out, you're gonna probably have more success than if you publish a book at like $4.99 and it just sits there. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
That's kind of.
I guess it's the idea behind the 99-cent deal, and Darren and a few others like you have done this, AJ Riddle and even Mather and plenty of other people, is that yes, you're making less money off of that first book at the beginning, but if you're getting 10 or 20 or 50,000 readers ready for the next one, then the long-term success of that series is always going to be stronger. Instead of having 2,000 people at $4.99, you got 10,000 people at 99 cents. It's 10,000 readers. So,
right. I mean, you look at the Breaker series, Edward Robertson, or Dark Space, Jasper T. Scott, and those guys, they all priced their first book at 99 cents, or were willing to give them away for free. So there's kind of a split here between indie authors. Some say you shouldn't give your work away for that price, and then others say, well, in the long run, it's going to work out. I'm kind of in the group that says build an audience, and then eventually you can sell your book for more and make a living doing what you love to do.
Are you compiling a mailing list from all those?
Yeah, that's another thing I did. And Edward Robertson, I messaged. I think we've emailed like once, and that was his only advice for me. Well, his advice was start a mailing list. That's what I did, and I put a link in Orbs, Solar Storms, all my books, and when it was doing really well, I was getting a couple people to join a day, and that's key now. Even Simon & Schuster, Simon 451, which is the imprint that bought the book, they've even told me, use your mailing lists to contact your readers. That's the best way, really, to get to notify people of your next book or give them updates on what you have out.
Now, do you have?
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask a question about Goodreads. You talked about joining a bunch of those groups and being a part of them. How long before you launched did you join them? Were you a part of their community for a while? I know a lot of people have said Goodreads is really powerful, but they also don't like people just coming in and saying, buy my book or read my book.
Right.
So how long did you spend being a part of those communities before
probably
you
a year.
approached them?
Yeah. And that's an important thing to point out. A lot of authors do come in and just say, "Hey, buy my book," and that turns readers off. And I was just guilty of that at first too. I was like, "Wow, I wrote this book. Everyone thinks that their first book is awesome, and my first book wasn't awesome, but I was still like, buy it," and that was a mistake, I think. So what I did, I built some relationships over the year. When Biomaths Revolution was on sale, before I released Orbs, I built the readers that did like Biomaths Revolution. I asked some of them if they wanted to beta read for me, and so I built some relationships that way. Like I said, I was the co-host of this other group. I posted quite a bit on there about reviews of other books, and I linked my blog through there. So I spent some time building relationships, and that's, I think, important to note now too, that Simon451 has asked me to be more active in Goodreads, because I've spent the past 6 months writing and neglecting a lot of social media now that Orbs is kind of sold, and I've kind of switched into high gear of just writing. But that's something I'm going to get back into now that Orbs 2 is slated for pre-release, and it is important to build an audience on Goodreads, regardless if you think it sells books or not. Because those are readers.
Hey, Nicholas, you mentioned your mailing list. How often do you send out messages to your subscribers?
Not often at all. I would say I've sent maybe 3 messages out in the past 6 months, and that's just because I haven't released anything. I'm a firm believer that you should only use your mailing list when you have something really important to say, because you don't want to spam those people. And three emails probably isn't enough. I probably should have done more. But like I said, I didn't end up publishing Orbs 2 when I thought I was going to, so I've just been waiting kind of to reach out to those readers, and I know they're still there. But I would say one message a month, maybe 2 messages, depending on what releases you have or what kind of updates you have for them, would be my suggestion on that.
So primarily you just use it to announce new releases, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's why I kind of built, and just so readers could follow me that way. When someone takes the time to write in their email address and their information, that they're interested enough in your book that they're probably going to follow you on your writing journey. So I mostly post on my Facebook page, my author page, and then my Twitter page, and save everything that's really important for the mailing list.
And how active are you on Facebook and Twitter?
Well, like I said, I've really spent a lot of time writing lately, but before I was trying to tweet 1 or 2 times a day. Then it kind of went to like a couple times a week, and now I'm not promoting at all. But I feel like some of this advice might not be great, because I'm kind of in limbo right now with Orbs. Orbs is going to be re-released on July 1st. So I've been kind of reluctant to promote it, because right now the version that's up on Amazon and the other sites is my indie version, and I've been kind of waiting for them to do. I spent 3 months working with an editor at Simon Schuster on content, and then they went through extensive copy edits. So there's going to be a brand new version put up on July 1st. So I've been kind of waiting to promote it, and then also the pre-release of the other books.
Okay, well, before you signed that deal, whenever you first released Orbs and you were building momentum and all that, how active were you on Facebook and Twitter at that time?
I was posting about once a day, and one thing that I was also doing is I was posting every Monday asking for reviews. And I noticed that Sundays and Mondays seem to be very active time for readers, so I was trying to post review requests, and then also promotional tools, I guess, on those days. And then I would also post like what the ranking was and stuff, and just whatever I could.
The things you were posting are just the normal things that every author posts. Hey, yeah. I got a good review, buy my book, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, but I was trying to. It's hard, because you try to find line when you post on your Facebook page or Twitter, because oftentimes you're posting the same people that have already read your book. So I think I kind of trailed things back a little bit, especially with review requests, because that I felt like was kind of annoying people. and I have 2 separate Facebook pages. Obviously, I have one for my personal friends and then my author page. And I really don't post anything on my personal page anymore at all because most of the time, friends and family, I can't even get my twin brother to read Orbs, so I keep everything specific to my author page.
Okay.
Does that help?
There's a question. Yeah, it does. There's a question from the website from Xavier Granville, and he says, how much of the audience that you have do you think now readers of yours in follow-up works, or do you think that there was a lot of people who were just out looking for popular sci-fi books? I guess on top of that, when a book explodes like that, you do get a lot of people. Have you seen a lot of trail from Orbs, which became ultra successful, into the other book that you have up?
Yeah, back in November, December, when Orbs was, in the top seller list, it was my other books were all selling as well. And I think I would say about 10% of the people that bought Orbs went on to buy Biomaths Revolution. That number might be a little bit high, but when it was doing really well, I think 5 to 10% was the carryover. And I know, a lot of those readers are going to go on to buy Orbs 2 and Orbs 3, but whether or not they go on to buy my next book or my next series is, I really don't know. Hopefully. But the idea is to continue to build an audience that will go on to read your next work,
You mentioned that you've been through substantial edits with Simon and Schuster.
Yeah.
How much has the content changed as a result of those edits?
That's a good question. Because I was wondering what would happen when I did sign, and there were some significant content edits, some things that changed. A lot of them was cutting down on like coincidences or like the Deus Ex Machina type situations. But then there was some really extensive copy editing too. I mean, I think if I remember correctly, I had like 254 comments from my editor total on the book, things I needed to change. And that was like a light edit since Orbs was already out. But Orbs 2 and Orbs 3 is going to go through a much more intensive edit. And we're just beginning the process on Orbs 2.
Did you have Orbs professionally edited before you released it as an indie?
I did. I hired a lady off of Elance, and she copy edited it, and she helped with the content, and then I had beta readers too. But science fiction, I'm going to be honest, I'm not a scientist. There's a lot of things that fell through the cracks, and there's a lot of things that I wanted to change. I'm glad I got the opportunity to change them. I know that I will say one thing, that if you are thinking about making the switch to traditional, I know that traditional publishers are looking for authors that are willing to make changes in their books. I think that there's some authors that are kind of like, let's just move on to the next thing and leave what we have out. But I, on the other hand, I was hoping to have the opportunity to fix some of the things reviewers had issues with in Orbs, and I'm really excited that we were able to do that. It took a while, but I mean, it took 3 months, but there was quite a few changes.
Okay, I have a question for you. I noticed that Orbs is available on all platforms like Kobo and Barnes & Noble and Apple and Amazon, but Biomaths Revolution and the short stories that go along with it are only in KDP Select. I was just wondering how you're doing on the other platforms, and how are you using Select for Biomaths Revolution right now?
Okay, so what I did with the Biomaths Revolution is I kept it in KDP Select just because I didn't want to, promote it on all the other sites. And was your question also about how Orbs is doing on the other platforms?
Yeah, because it's interesting that you have one of your series on KDP Select only, and the other series is everywhere.
Right. Okay. So Simon 451, they are across the board. There's certain publishers like Bermuda Press that are exclusive to Amazon with their books, but Simon 451 said Orbs is going on all the platforms, and I decided to keep Biomaths Revolution on just KDP Select because I don't really have the resources to get it out. I don't have the time right now either to promote it on all the other sites. Excuse me. And to answer your question on how Orbs is doing, it hasn't been marketed at all yet. Like I said, the indie version's still up, and they price it at 99 cents to kind of build sales. But what happened was when I signed the contract, Simon & Schuster's imprint, Simon 451, took over. I had to pull my version down, and they put up my indie version with their copyright. And what happened was it lost its ranking, it lost all of its also bots, and it really hasn't recovered yet. And they're not going to, I don't think we're really going to do much marketing for Orbs 1 until July 1st. So it's not doing well at all on those other sites because no one knows about it yet. But eventually, the marketing push will... And the other thing is Simon 451 hasn't even launched yet. They're not launching until October. So there's not going to probably be a whole lot of marketing until then, until Orbs 2 comes out. Does that answer your question? I know it's complicated with my situation.
Yeah, I thought it was like a conscious decision by you and not a decision by Simon & Schuster. But for example, if you hadn't assigned with Simon & Schuster, would you have stayed in KDP Select with Orbs?
Absolutely.
Or would you have taken it?
I would have kept it exclusive, and I would have used the Kindle Countdowns to continue to promote the book. I would have released Orbs 2 back in January, and then Orbs 3 probably in July, and I would have just kept it in KDP Select probably for the next year. But
because a lot of the, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say the reason for that is, as indies, we're kind of limited in what we can do, like who we can reach in our marketing. But when you sign with a publisher, they have a lot more resources, so they're able to reach all those other sites to reach the readers that are on all those other sites. You know what I mean? So that would have been I would have definitely have kept it in Amazon to utilize their tools to promote it.
Yeah, because I've noticed after the Select free days kind of lost their algorithm oomph. Mm-hmm. I noticed a lot of people went wide, but the people that have stayed and been able to use the countdown deals in conjunction with an e-reader News Today or a BookBub have done really, really well. And then it seems like Amazon is really helping out the people that have been successful and stayed in Select since then.
Yeah. I have a few observations. I mean, I don't know if this is just a theory of mine from what I've seen, but like the Kindle Countdowns are kind of they've, in my opinion, replaced the power of the free days. I don't really recommend using free days anymore because what happens is there's a ton of readers out there that hoard books on their Kindles, free books, and they don't really read them. So when you give away your book for free, what you're doing is oftentimes people are just going and filling their Kindle up with these books, but they're not reading them, so you're not going to get reviews, and it's going to change the also bots. And oftentimes you're going to get bad also bots that aren't in your genre. I've seen like cooking books show up in sci-fi also bots, which obviously is not going to help you. But the Kindle Countdown, on the other hand, not only does it allow you to keep 70% of your royalties, but they promote the book, and I've seen it kind of hit or miss. The Kindle Countdowns that I've done for Orbs, and then I did one for Biomaths Revolution, they did really well because I think Amazon helped promote it, and I'm not exactly sure why, but that would be my advice to indie authors, like especially new indie authors. Enroll your book in KDP Select and use that to build an audience, and then eventually, like in a couple years, then you can reach out. I mean, look what AJ Riddle's done with his massively popular series. I think those books are all in Prime, aren't they? They're in KDP Select.
Yeah, they're all in Select, and then he had three of them in the top 100 at once, like a month ago.
Exactly. I mean, he's a perfect example. Obviously, the negative for him is he can't become a New York Times bestseller, but right now he can't because it has to be on other platforms. But he has done so well using this platform.
I think he cares. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's happy with the tens of thousands he's making as opposed to the label of New York Times bestseller.
Right.
So we have a question. Sorry, go ahead. Do you want to take it, Carl?
I was just going to say that, yeah, there's definitely been some solid evidence towards, specifically in science fiction in the last 18 months. The really big hit books, including yours, have all seemingly been part of KDP Select, and My theory is that Amazon is giving a little bit of extra help to those books, but I guess it's hard to see. But it just seems very coincidental that pretty much all of the big hits, including yours and Darren and a bunch of others, have been using Select.
Yeah, Darren and I've actually spoken about this specifically, and we both believe that. I mean, I probably shouldn't speak for him, but when your book's in KDP Select,
I speak for him all the time, so you're free to go.
All right, well, he can correct me if I'm wrong later. But so if your book's in KDP Select, readers can borrow it for free, and every time they borrow that, I'm not sure if it counts as a sale, but it does help your rate.
Does.
Okay.
It does.
So, like, obviously, if you look at the rankings of books at the beginning of the month, when a lot of those people are using their free book for the month, oftentimes the KDP Select books that are in Prime shoot up towards the top. I mean, I think Darren gave me a number of it's over 50%.
It's about 20%, I think.
Is it
about
20?
15-20%. Yeah, and he's not the only one who said that. I think even Matthew said that his was around 15-20% borrows in there.
Okay. What I meant was like the books that were in the top 20.
Yeah, it's huge. It's a huge amount. It's way more than 20. It was like 60 or 70 or something like that. It's really, really high.
So obviously they are helping with the ranking, and at the same time, Amazon's got these newsletters, and I remember I'm trying to think of what I can say, what I can't say here, but I know that Amazon's mailing lists, they can reach 3 million or some readers. I mean, it's ridiculous how many readers. So just think about it. If your book shows up in the newsletter for a month, if even 1% of those people end up buying your book, it's going to launch you. And that's what happened with Orbs. It got in the Amazon Sci-Fi newsletter, and then it hit the KDP top Select 25, and then it just exploded. And like I said, there's a lot of things that happened for that to occur, and a lot of it was luck. But at the same time, I mean, there's reviews that go into this. There's also bots. There's the free promotional sites and the 99-cent sites. I mean, it's a combination of things that there's a lot of work that goes into it. And one of the things that I really wanted to talk about on this program was when I was writing Orbs, I was watching all these books do really well, and I was thinking, damn, how are they doing so well? And oftentimes, I can't think of an example of a book that didn't have some sort of help. Terms of Enlistment, that book was are you guys familiar with that one? It was purchased by 47 North. Mark Kloos wrote it. It was released the same day I released the Biomaths Revolution, so I watched that book for a while, and I don't think he did a whole lot of promoting, but he had an author that he was acquainted with write a blog post for him, and so that's what helped his book. But my point is, every indie book that does well, it doesn't just pop up on Amazon and all of a sudden become a bestseller. You have to put work. Obviously, you have to put a lot of work into it. But there's a lot of different tools you can use. If you're an established author and you have authors that will write blog posts for you and say, hey, and tell their readers to buy your book, that's great. But most of us have to, figure out other ways.
Good point.
Now, one thing I want to bring it up again because I think it's that important. A lot of people just put their book in Select and then try to run a countdown deal and then just kind of try to get some sales the first month without really pushing it. And then they wonder why they don't get sales. But the one thing I like that you mentioned and Darren mentioned also is you went and you got the reviews, and then you also did promo sites and you pushed it really hard so that you get 10,000 sales. And then you want to combine the countdown with other promotional sites. Now, when you said you did the promotional sites, which ones did you do in particular, like ENT or
ENT?
Booksy, or?
Let me pull up in my list real quick. I use most of the same ones that Darren did, but one second here. So I did eReader News Today, which you mentioned. I used ebookbooster.com. You want me to type them in the comments here? Would that help?
Oh, you can just...
Yeah, you can just say them. It's all right. We can share some more of it later.
All right, Book Blast, which was a small one, but it had a pretty big effect, and it was cheap. Kindle Nation Daily, I bought some ads. those you really have to book in advance though to get the good ones. And then ebook lister, and then the big one's BookBub, but I don't really know any situations where someone was able to get BookBub to list them within their first month of the. I think that the best thing that I've seen happen for indie authors that get BookBub is when they release book 2, then they get book 1 listed under BookBub like the same week, and that just gives the whole series a launch or like a boost, you know. But that's
I've seen that.
I had BookBub run an ad for Orbs. I think it was 2 months ago, and Orbs was like, it slipped to like the 4,000s or the 5,000s, and within the first hour, I think like the hour after the email went out, it had sold, it moved like I think 700 copies, and it ended up rising up to number 71 at one point in the Kindle store altogether. It was huge. I just couldn't believe how well it did with BookBub. And it's taken me a year and a half to get BookBub to list Biomaths Revolution, and they're going to do that next month. And I kind of planned that with the re-release of Orbs, hoping it would give, you know, the series a boost as well.
It's like planning. BookBub is the boss.
Yeah, it's expensive though. I mean, ads are not cheap. Well, they're not ads. I mean, guess what they do is they just send out a blast to their readers and say, "Hey, this book's on promo."
No, it's fabulous. We have a question in the comments from Zoe York. She writes, Nicholas, did you hold the book, meaning, I guess, Orbs, to release until you had a solid marketing plan in place? Was it done for a period of time before you released it? And what's the tipping point for you, a month, 3? And then she says, as a now traditionally published author who's previously self-published and therefore worked on very different schedules, do you have any general thoughts on release schedules and building buzz?
Okay. Yeah, those are good questions. And I did have a marketing plan set up that really started like a month in advance. Like I said, I sent out advanced copies to readers that showed interest. And but then, like, honestly, 2 weeks before I was going to release Orbs, I came across a podcast with Darren, and I didn't even know about some, like BookBub, for example, or ENT. So then I kind of integrated that into the marketing strategy. And I used those sites to promote Solar Storms, the prequel, which I put for free on Amazon 5 days in advance. And I just it all kind of molded together. But my initial plan was more lined up for advanced reviewers. It wasn't the promotional sites, but it was the promotional sites that gave the book the boost. Now, let's see, the second question.
Actually, and we'll kind of segue into this a little bit too, Nick, is this idea of the Simon Schuster now, if you don't mind, and I don't know how much you want to share and how much you can share, but can you kind of do some comparisons for us too, because I know a lot of our audience is interested in maybe doing a hybrid deal, or so some of that stuff that you got along with there, and I won't narrow you down to specifics unless you want to share. So,
like about what I'm allowed to publish and like my option clause, stuff like that. Is that kind of what you're?
And maybe a little bit about the differences. You talked a little bit to me about having an idea of sort of how things are going to change marketing-wise and what you're going to be doing with those guys. Whatever you can talk about for that would be quite interesting, because people are interested.
Well, I'm not exactly positive how the marketing is going to go with Simon 451 right now, because they're a new imprint. I think a lot of what they do is they reach out to those promotional sites too. They utilize their mailing lists. So like the Simon Schuster mailing list will be key, I think. They're doing they're going to talk about Orbs 1 at the July Comic-Con, and they're doing a lot of like free excerpts from the book in their e-sampler, which includes other books under their imprint. And they're going to do the same thing for Orbs 2 at New York's Comic-Con in October as kind of like their big push, because that's when they're going to launch this label. So there's like a combination of things. I think that one thing the publishers can do for you that like the whole thing here was, why should I sign with a publisher when I'm doing really well as an indie? Like, and my decision was, what can they do for me that I can't do for myself? Well, one, they can reach all these other there's vendors, and I don't have to really do much. Like I don't have to have book formatted. Like they do everything, right? And then they're going to do a lot of marketing. They're going to reach readers that I couldn't reach. They're going to get me beyond Amazon, and they're going to help build, a brand around my name, or at least help with that. I mean, I'm still responsible for a lot of the social media, and that's what my checklist shows. Things I have to do myself, which is fine because I like to reach out to readers and to writers and to help other people with my marketing and everything. But that was kind of my decision, was maybe I'm leaving money on the table, but at the same time it was like a career move for me, and seeing that Simon & Schuster and Simon 451 could really help my career. And but I still, and on the other hand, I also think it's important, like we're entering a new phase of publishing. My editor calls it the Wild West of publishing. I like that. And I think most authors are going to become hybrid authors. Look at Bob Mayer, who he's got his own label, he's got his own like publishing company, but he's got books with 47 North. He's got other traditionally published books, and he's a New York Times bestseller. I mean, these guys, a lot of them are signing traditional deals, but at the same time they're self-publishing too. And that's what I hope to do in the future, but I mean, not anytime.
Can you give any insight on the non-competing type clauses and stuff, or whatever?
Sure. I think the digital imprints are probably going to have less of a non-compete clause than like traditional, like across the board publishers like Simon. I'm not exactly sure on that, to be honest. I think like I'm not able to publish anything until my next book. They get first look at my next book. I think that's pretty typical. I know some authors sign deals where they get first look at their next book in the series. That's not the case with me. But I think those option clauses are kind of getting a little bit weaker now as the publishing industry changes. I think authors are able to have more freedom. I think publishers realize in order to get indies to sign indies that have done well that they can't like be really, I don't know, those contracts have to be. I see a question here about Hugh Howey. Like everyone's like, hold out. Hugh Howey held out. Well, Hugh Howey's Hugh Howey, guys, and he held out for an awesome deal, but like most indie authors are not getting even close to those deals. Like people would be surprised.
I don't think they're even going to be doing those deals anymore. I don't
Probably
think.
not. Yeah.
There was him and who was the other one? Kevin, that got the same deal as Hugh at the same time.
Bella Andre currently has. Yeah, she's in like every grocery store and every Walmart, and she has all the digital rights still.
Well.
Yeah, but I don't think that places like Simon & Schuster are probably going to do that again. I think that was a trial, and I think those days are probably already gone. But I see that argument all the time. I'll only take a print deal from all these people in various places, and I think that they're just dreaming, basically.
Yeah, I think a lot of authors sign really bad deals though too, and I mean, there's some really small presses out there that will go after popular books, and some people might jump at them, and so there's really great deals out there that are kind of a dime a dozen, and there's really bad deals out there that some authors fall into those traps. But that's why it's important, I think, that if you are going to go traditional, find an agent, which I'm more than happy to talk about that too, because my agent has been so helpful to me. He's really guided me. I mean, obviously I'm a noob at all this stuff, and he's really kind of steered me in the right direction. Because it's a tough business, man. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to look at indie publishing, but even if you are successful, and like I never thought I would be this successful. Like I said, my first book didn't do that well. But when Orbs did, like there was a lot of different people coming at me. I had authors come. I had a lot of reviewers too, and it was just it's good to have someone that is looking out for you. And like I said, I'm more than happy to talk about how to find an agent and how I found an agent and stuff like that if people are interested in knowing. I haven't really talked about that at all. on any of my social media.
Who is your agent?
His name's David Fugate with Launch Books, and he reps DJ Moles. That's how I found him. I actually reached out to him when I started getting like offers for audio, and like I had some film inquiries from big companies asking about the film rights, and I just felt overwhelmed. Initially, I wasn't going to look for an agent. I thought maybe one would come to me, but so I reached out to him, and he read the book, he liked it, and it was kind of a bad timing. It was bad timing though, because Orbs was doing really well around Christmas, and that's when publishing shuts down. So like we had to wait for Christmas break to see like if publishers were going to be interested in it, or if there was going to be a new book out that replaced it, and they were just going to say, Orbs was 2013, what's 2014, you know? So, and I guess in that regard I got lucky. Like, it continued to do well over Christmas, it continued to do well in January, and I had Orbs 2 ready to go, so, and then I had the outline for Orbs 3 to provide publishers if they wanted to take a look.
So you started getting inquiries, then you reached out to a fellow author, and he set you up with his agent. Is that pretty much how it happened?
No, actually, that is kind of how it happened. I have an author friend who he was a screenwriter named William Massa, and he suggested David, and so I just sent David an email when I heard that he also reps like some of my favorite authors, and I just started talking to David, and said he read Orbs, and he liked it, and it continued to do well. I mean, I think that if Orbs would have fallen off the charts, I probably wouldn't have ended up staying indie. Probably. I'm not exactly sure. But like I said, publishing shuts down around Christmas for 2 weeks almost. And the publishing clock is a lot different than our clock as indies. Like, obviously there's new books being published every day. There's tons of, it's like there's a new bestseller every day, you know? So there's a lot of competition you have to deal with.
Well, now that you are traditionally published, are you still going to continue to use the same indie strategies? Or will you just become reliant on the publisher to do everything?
I think that I'll rely on some of the strategies I used with, like, I'm still going to reach out to reviewers. I'm still going to do a lot of social media stuff. But, like, I'm kind of limited now, like, with the price of Orbs is going to be, I think, like, they've already raised the price of book 2 and book 3 around. It's going to be around $5, so we won't be able to utilize those free and the 99-cent promotional sites. But if I do decide to go hybrid, if I'm allowed to self-publish, I will definitely go back to my same marketing strategy and just continue to modify it as Amazon changes every day. I mean, it sounds like I hear something new literally every week that's going on with Amazon, so I'll just continue to modify that strategy.
Okay.
There's a couple of questions about the agent, if you don't mind. Fiction by Angel said, did you get the agent before you published the first book? So that's already kind of been answered you. After Orbs did well, you sought out the agent through your friend William Massa. And the second one is from Stacey Claflin. How does your agent get paid? Do you pay a percentage, royalties? Like, how does that work? Can you talk about that?
I'd probably generically. I mean, most agents take a percentage. I think it's pretty typical that depending on what type of rights they've sold, so like digital and book rights are going to be like around 15%, I think, and then movie rights would be around 20-25%, something like that. But it kind of depends.
So he does handle all your rights, though? He shops for all?
Yeah, right. He handles everything. I mean, he's got a lot of agents will have co-agents that they work with, like in the film industry, or like foreign rights agents that work abroad and whatnot. So, but he's like he does everything for me. So, and I think it's really important to find an agent that that likes your genre. I mean, you can. I did look a little bit for agents before Orbs came out, but I just decided it was overwhelming. I was going to wait and see how the book did. And then when I started getting these like inquiries, I decided, well, now I'm overwhelmed in a different way, and I think I need an agent. So that's why I reached out to David, because he reps authors that are in my same genre. And I mean, actually, if you look at his website, he specializes in like nonfiction, I think, but he also reps Andy Weir, who wrote The Martian. So he's got a lot of different authors.
Now I have a question. You said you were doing well before you contacted the agent through your friend. When you say you're doing well, are you okay like sharing numbers? Like, had you hit like 10,000 sales or 50,000 sales, or like, because a lot of authors kind of wonder like what kind of sales numbers they need before they're going to get attention from an agent.
Well, I mean, that's a really good question, but I don't know the answer to like what kind of sales you need. I would say, because I have had tons of authors ask me this, like, what were your sales, and like what did publishers look at? Well, first off, I'll say it's important to differentiate 99-cent books from like $2.99 books even, because oftentimes publishers look at 99-cent sales as like not really sales. It's not going to be a good idea of how the book's going to do if they price it at $5.99. So I think I raised the price after, I think, 10,000 sales. I was going to do 5,000, and then I was like, 10,000 is the number I wanted to hit. Because at that point, like I said, the also bots were everywhere. And so I raised the price to $2.99 then to see how it would do. And I knew if it didn't do well at $2.99, then I was probably not going to have a chance of going traditional or having interest in the book. So it did do well at $2.99, but I think there's two different ways to get an agent, and I kind of went the route where I waited to see how my book did, and then when you have inquiries, I think an agent's going to be a lot more interested in your book if it's selling, and if you have inquiries, then, because I think agents get like probably 10 books a day that they have to read through. You know, there's just so many out there, and I didn't want to wait. I think a lot of indies are the same way. They don't want to wait around. They just want to put their book on Amazon or whatever and see how it does. And I got lucky taking the route I did. But like as far as numbers go, like I would say a lot of people have asked, when should I raise the price of my book to $2.99 or more? And I would say like around 5,000 books would be. It sounds like a lot. I mean, Hugh Howey just wrote a post about how 5,000 books is a ton of sales, and it is. I could not believe it when I sold my first 100. But I'm not sure how the also bots work on Amazon, but I know it takes quite a bit of sales for them to keep popping up in other books, and that will sustain your sales too. So does that answer your question? I know I'm kind of jumping around, but there's a lot of questions I don't really know how to address because I don't know the answers. I don't think anyone does.
Now you said you put it up to $2.99 at 10,000 sales. Was that 10,000 sales right after the first month or second month or third month when you hit that sales mark?
I think that was like in the second month, but I don't remember exactly. I think it was probably around like a month and a half, maybe 40 days.
And did you leave it at $2.99?
Bad.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. That's really good. Did you leave it at $2.99 from that point on?
Yeah, I did. Until I did a Kindle Countdown. Actually, well, I take that back. At Christmas, I did a fundraiser for an animal charity, and I dropped it down to 99 cents for a couple days. But besides that, I kept it at $2.99. So, but the other thing I would recommend, if your book does become like, if it gets in the top 20 list on Amazon, also bots aren't the only reason to keep your book at 99 cents. And they're not the only thing that's going to sustain sales. Like exposure is huge, and those lists are the best exposure you can get. So like if your book's in the top like 10 on Amazon, or if it pops up in that little column on the right that says like new bestsellers, those really help sustain sales too. And I raised my price at $2.99 when I hit some of those like top lists, and I think that's what really sustained it when I did raise the price.
Interesting. Okay. Kevin, is there a question from the site?
I have a question. We had a question in the comments from Michelle Reed. There's a lot of authors that listen, and frankly, on this podcast, that still have day jobs, and so seeing your success is really inspirational. The question is, how long from when you hit publish until you were able to quit your day job and become a full-time writer?
Well, I think it was like 2 years. Like last year, I spent most of my year doing triathlons and writing Orbs, um, and then like I would never have been able to do this without Orbs. And I still don't know. Sometimes I still question whether I should have resigned from my job at Homeland Security. But I waited until I had a contract in place with a publisher, and I had an advance, because for me, gambling that Orbs 2 was going to do as well as Orbs 1 was not. It was a risk that I wasn't willing to take without having a publisher behind me. So I guess to answer the question, like in fairness, I wouldn't really count the first year of writing to be like a measure of how long it took, because I wasn't really that serious until Orbs came out. Then I put everything, like I put a ton of savings into marketing it and into the cover work and the editing and all that stuff. And then I think it was 7 months after that I was able to make that jump. But again, like Simon Schuster, Simon 451, they're re-releasing Orbs, and then they're publishing Orbs 2 in October and Orbs 3 in January, and then they're also publishing short stories. And then Amazon we were able to sell the rights to Audible, and Audible is going to turn all the books into audio too. So I think a lot of things fell into place for me to be able to make this move to full-time writing. And honestly, I don't know how you could write 3 books or 2 books and short stories and go through the editing that's involved with the traditional publisher and work full-time. I don't know how you could do it. It would just be, it's a lot of work, a lot of stress. And so that was really important for me to have that contract signed before I made the move. I know a lot of indie authors that do well continue just to keep self-publishing, but like I was concerned about how well Orbs 2 would do if I just self-published it. And does that answer your question or her question?
Yeah. You know, it's always interesting to hear how long it was and how successful they were before they quit their day job. Because as writers, it's all of our dreams to be able to quit the 9 to 5.
Right, and it's also our dreams to be able to sustain that. Like I could be waiting tables in a year from now. I don't know, but for this, I'm going to give it my best shot for a year, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. Like I didn't want to pass up the opportunity, and so.
I mean, worst case, you go back to Homeland Security and be Jake Bauer again.
I had one more question. You said earlier that it took you 6 or 7 years to write your first book, Biomaths Revolution. How long did it take you to write Orbs then?
It took me 6 months to write Orbs, and part of that is because during those 6 or 7 years I was writing Biomass, I would leave it for 6 months and then come back to it. And I was never serious about publishing it. I never really had plans for it. It was just something I enjoyed and I put together kind of piecemeal, which is evident if you read the book. Like you can tell it was kind of written over time. But like now, I'm producing. I think it's kind of, that's another thing I kind of wanted to talk about if we have time, is just like what an average word count is for authors and like what it takes to write a book to be able to pump one out every 3 months or to a year. But yeah, it took me 6 months to write Orbs, and then I was able to write Orbs 2 like I think it took me like 2 months, 2 or 3 months.
So are you planning on self-publishing then during this time too, to supplement even more, or are you going to just focus on the deal you have with 451 and get those done?
Yeah, I'm focusing primarily just on the Orb series. I'm working on other projects, but like my goal is to make sure that it does well with them, and I think it's in fairness. That's what I should be doing. But maybe in the future I'll self-publish again. It just kind of depends on what happens. I mean, if the books don't do well, then I probably won't have another opportunity to go traditional so I'll probably be forced to self-publish again. But and I actually would like to self-publish again. I should mention that. I mean, this industry is amazing, and anyone could be sitting in my chair right now. Like I said, luck plays a big role in it. Like any of you guys, like I had no idea this was going to happen to me, but it's just important to say it. Amazon's there's a lot of bad publicity with Amazon right now, but they were able. I wouldn't be here without Amazon. And there was a lot of indie authors that.
I think many people would be. So.
Yeah.
There's a few wee comments on the site before we wrap up. You've got a fan in Michelle Reed. I think she says, I think it's very mature and sweet that you doubted that Orbs 2 would do as well without an agent and teamwork. So she's all impressed by you. And there's a few people talking about the hard work of writing and working and stuff. Michelle Reed said Kristen Harbour was writing whilst giving birth, which is true. Kristen Moss said that she wrote and published 14 short stories and a couple of novellas last year. It's doable, you just have to put the work in.
Yeah.
So yeah, before we wrap up, I just wanted to point people over to the blog. Kevin's continuing to do some more indie author interviews over there, and his latest one with Sibel Hodge, just signed it with Thomas and Mercer, is over on the blog. So go over there and check that out, and the previous two. I think you've got some more coming in the next week as well.
Yeah, we have about 5 or 6 more coming.
Awesome.
And go to iTunes and leave us a review because we love them.
Nicholas, where can people find you? Where's some good places to look on the interwebs for you?
Facebook is probably where I mention my books the most. I'm on Twitter too, Great Wave Inc. I'll type that into the comments here. That's my Twitter. And then if anyone has any questions, like I said, I'm more than happy to share what I've done for success, and type in my email address, which actually is the same.
We'll put all that in the show notes for people. Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely. But if people have questions, feel free to send them to me.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, Nicholas. It was really,
guys. Yeah, thanks
really
for having
insightful and great to hear. And congratulations on all your success. That's awesome.
Sorry if I rambled a little bit. I've had a lot of coffee today, so.
No, we really appreciate it, and it's really good to hear these things, being repeated. There's several people in a row now that have been doing the same things as you, and it's showing that there is a trend that you can find success in this market, which 12 months ago people were saying it was kind of dead unless you were around when the whole Kindle Gold Rush / KDP Select period came around. But there is consistent authors that are making it and continue to do so. So
yeah,
it's really impressive.
It's a good time to be.
I'm especially impressed that you did it with KDP Select. It's very inspiring.
I think that's the way to go. Like I said, for a debut author, Amazon has the tools for you, and also then you can focus primarily just on Amazon. You don't have to worry about like Nook. Another thing, 80 to 90% of ebook sales are on Amazon, aren't they? I mean,
something like that, yeah.
Yeah, the amount of sales that you're going to get just from your borrows are probably going to be more than if you put your book on Nook. So that's the way I looked at it.
Yeah, wait for somebody to make inroads into that, but that right now you're right. That's where it's at.
Well, you can always move out later, I guess, but there is just a lot of power, and a lot of people are finding ways to get Countdown to work for them and the borrowers, and it just seems smart for anyone starting out.
I agree. Yep.
All right. Well, thank you again so much, and thank you everyone for listening. Lots of good comments tonight and lots of involvement. Appreciate the listeners. And as Carl said, leave us a review on iTunes. It would really be appreciated, and give us a thumbs up over on YouTube.
Cool.
Yeah, and just before we go, Nick and I briefly did talk. He mentioned his friend William Masser, and we might do something with you guys in the future, the both of you, because we thought there was a second follow-up show, so Nick might come back later on down the line.
He's a fantastic author, and he's a screenwriter too, so you may have watched some of his movies, and he's publishing his old scripts. He's gotten the rights back too, so check his books out too. He's got a new one. Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll talk to Nick about that, and we'll put together another show down the line with him.
Okay, so you guys want me to come back? That's good. I didn't talk too much.
We're actually about to do. Yeah, you can talk as much as you like. We do an after party after this live show where some of the live viewers come in and talk to us and ask questions. So you're welcome to stick around for half an hour or whatever time you want if you can. It's a separate hangout. It's not live. It's just an offline chat with a few of the viewers. They can tell you how amazing you are and inflate your ego, etc.
I doubt that. Yeah.
Like you need your ego inflated anymore, Carl.
All right.
All right.
Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next week. So, how do your mums for me?